Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Nur Farhana, the moderator for today's debate session. So the topic under debate today is COVID-19 is a naturally occurring emerging pandemic disease. Without further ado, I would like to invite the first speaker from the pro group to present her stand on this issue.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To the respected moderator, cautious timekeeper, honorable assessor, members of the opposition team, and members of the floor. Before I put forward my case today, I would like to define today's motion. COVID-19 is a naturally occurring emerging pandemic disease. According to Cambridge Dictionary, COVID-19 or coronavirus disease 2019 is defined as an infectious disease caused by a coronavirus that usually causes fever, tiredness, a cough, and changes to the senses of smell and taste, and can lead to breathing problems and severe illness in some people. The naturally means the happening or existing as part of nature and not made or done by people. And the emerging means starting to exist. Today, I, as the Prime Minister, will be the first speaker of the government and will present one argument. Today, we, the government, strongly believe with the motion COVID-19 is a naturally occurring emerging pandemic disease. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me introduce about COVID. COVID-19 is a disease caused by a coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2. WHO first learned of this new virus on 31st December 2019, following a report of cluster of cases of so-called virus pneumonia in Wuhan. Coronavirus is an enveloped virus with a single-stranded positive sense ribonucleic acid genome, and it contains a total of 4 genera, which is alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. And the beta genus is classified into 4 lineage from A to D, and the scientific evidence showed that the virus causing COVID-19 belongs to B lineage of the beta coronavirus group, which is the same group as another epidemic causing virus, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, which is SARS coronavirus. Because of this similarity, it was named SARS-CoV-2. So, why I agree with the motion is because COVID is a naturally mutated virus. All coronavirus rely on spike proteins to infect other cells, but over time, each coronavirus has fashioned this protein a little differently, and the evolutionary clues about this modification are spelled out in their genomes. The genomic data of the new coronavirus responsible for COVID-19 showed that its spike protein contains some unique adaptation, and one of these adaptations provides a special ability of this coronavirus to bind to a specific protein on human cell called angiotensin converting enzyme, which is ACE2. A related coronavirus that causes severe acute respiratory syndrome in humans also seek out ACE2. And most scientific reports believe that the polybasic cleavage site and the mutation of the spike proteins are the mechanism behind the adaptation of this beta coronavirus group of the SARS-CoV-2 to humans. COVID evolved in its natural host. So according to the scientific evidence available, bats are inferred to be the host animals responsible for starting the transmission chain of this virus. Up to 96% similarity was found between SARS-CoV-2 and the bat coronavirus using whole genome analysis. And a study also supported this suggestive finding by using the sequence-based analysis and artificial intelligence on the genomic sequence of the novel coronavirus. Therefore, in conclusion, we government strongly agrees that COVID-19 is a naturally occurring emerging pandemic disease. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of our debate is COVID-19 is natural occurring emerging pandemic disease. However, we strongly disagree with the topic as there are possibilities for this virus to be a man-made virus which engineered in laboratory specifically in Wuhan, China, where the first massive spreading of COVID-19. As you can see, for many years, China has been seen as one of the dominant countries which have big power, such as much as United States and also Russia. With rapid science development in China, they can do so much things, which include to make SARS-CoV-2 as a biological weapon, where they intentionally spread the engineered mutated virus until it caused pandemic, which we experienced before. The biggest concern which led to this disagreement toward the topic is that At Wuhan Institute of Virology, the only biosafety level 4 exists. There where it happened to be that they can do so much dangerous experiment which highly contagious viruses there. The location of COVID-19 cases emerged suspiciously, not far from the laboratory, and it also has been mentioned in Natural Medicine article, which known that it have engaged with dangerous engineered of chimeric coronavirus. And to support this point, ironically, according to Nature Journal, the first COVID-19 vaccine has been produced by China, specifically from a private company known as Sinovac. Sounds familiar, right? Which specifically this private company is in Beijing, and until now, the use of Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine still relevant as vaccine booster. By destroying global economy, where even the developed or developing country has fallen, and many have suffered from the COVID-19 itself, and even Malaysia not accepted from the pandemic situation. The high demand of vaccine during pandemic has caused a high production of vaccine, which also lead to a high income to China government. Maybe you may say, how can China government have such intention if even their country has suffered severely from the COVID-19? The plan may has been effective by destroying other countries' economy, development, yet it may become out of control beyond their expectation. As the government side believe that COVID-19 is a natural mutated virus, we believe that it have high possibility that there was human interference of gene editing instead of being naturally mutated process, which has been caused faster mutation process to the virus, which lead to the use of virus as biological weapon. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Intentionally engineered in laboratory, specifically in Wuhan, China, where the first massive spreading of COVID-19. As you can see, for many years, China has been seen as one of the dominant countries which have big power, such as much as United States and also Russia. With rapid science development in China, they can do so much things, which include to make SARS-CoV-2 as a biological weapon, where they intentionally spread the engineered mutated virus until it caused pandemic, which we experienced before. The biggest concern which led to this disagreement toward the topic is that at Wuhan Institute of Virology, the only biosafety level 4 exists. There where it happened to be that they can do so much dangerous experiment which highly contagious viruses there. The location of COVID-19 cases emerged suspiciously, not far from the laboratory, and it also has been mentioned in Natural Medicine article, which known that it have engaged with dangerous engineered of chimeric coronavirus.
Thank you, moderator. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will further support our government's stand where we also believe that COVID-19 is a naturally emerged virus from an animal host as part of the process of natural selection. As mentioned before, the natural host of COVID is possibly bats. A study in 2020 has also performed an interspecies genomic divergence investigation for all proteins encoded by SARS-CoV-2 and its relatives by aligning all the sequences. They stated a close homology of more than 80% of SARS-CoV-2 with a bad beta coronavirus variant and a high conservation of envelope, membrane, and ACE2 structural proteins across all beta coronavirus strains. The ACE2 RBD subdomain of the S2 subunit of SARS-CoV-2 spike protein displayed 74.41% of genomic similarity to a bad SARS strain, showing high conservation level in the RBD, the receptor binding domain region. Another 2022 study have also stated that a subsequent epitope of the S2 spike glycoprotein proteolytic cleavage site, which is an important motif and is found to be responsible for initial binding of a previous SARS-CoV to lung cells and their activation of this spike protein by proteolytic cleavage, where it was later found that it was completely conserved as a 100% match between the SARS-CoV-2 strain and the previous bad coronavirus strain was observed, whereas the motif differs at 3 amino acid positions in MERS strain. Thus, it is most probably a disease due to zoonotic transmission. This is supported by studies showing that SARS coronavirus originates from direct contact between humans and civets. The outbreaks of COVID fit other coronavirus-caused diseases in humans, such as SARS, which arose from cat-like civets, and Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, which has also been discovered because of its direct transmission to humans from dromedary camels. Over time, coronavirus crossed from animals into humans before it became capable of causing human disease. Then, as a result of gradual evolutionary changes over years of perhaps decades, the virus eventually gained the ability to spread from human to human and cause serious, often life-threatening diseases. Where, if we observe from the lens of economic and geopolitical implications towards the source of the outbreak, China itself, if it is not natural, this will obviously affect China's economy. It is not reasonable at all. The world economy is influenced by China's economic status as the world's second largest economic power. According to Economic News, the list of gross domestic product GDP is started by the US with $22.3 trillion in 2020, followed by China with $15.7 trillion, but with a growth rate more than the US. It is indeed that COVID-19 has a natural origin. According to the experts, the analysis of public genome sequence data from SARS-CoV-2 and related viruses found no evidence that the virus was made in a laboratory or otherwise man-made. Despite that, there are still conspiracies and theories claimed by the United States that the COVID-19 virus is engineered and leaked from a laboratory in China. These conspiracy theories might occur since an economic conflict between China and the United States has been ongoing since January 2018, where a trade war between both of the countries began. United States-China relations have not improved since then. In the context of COVID-19, these two economic powers, China and the US, are contending to have supremacy over each other and coming out with a slew of conspiracy theories whereby both China and the US have accused each other of contributing to the origins of COVID-19. This might explain why the United States made various claims on China over COVID-19 origins, tracing such as the possibility of virus leak from the Wuhan Institute of Virology of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, when in fact there is no concrete evidence. So that's all from me.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, just now, the government side mentioned that SARS-CoV-2 is a natural emergence because of the emergence from animal hosts. So, in this point, are you referring the animal-based virus emergent based on the interest of Chinese people in eating exotic meat such as bat and pangolin? If yes, why should it emerge now and not long before that, as the culture of eating exotic meat has occurred so long? Therefore, the point which given by the government is debatable. Now, let me present to you my point which supports that COVID-19 is a man-made virus because of the leak of virus from a laboratory in China, specifically Wuhan. So my first point is the uncommon job advertisement practice by Wuhan Institute of Virology, or WIV. So WIV is an institute that is responsible for studying SARS-CoV virus. Interestingly, just before the outbreak, the institute was rushing to find some research job position. This kind of practice gives ideas about a disaster that may occur in the institute. Moreover, the studies involving transmission of SARS-CoV using cell culture and animal model structure that has been done for many years, not only from China, but all around the world. Therefore, theoretically, the mutation adaptation on virus gene during cell culture has been occurred, and from here, the probability for the virus to leak out from the lab is high. Even it is an incidental virus spreading, it is still be one of the reasons of emergence COVID-19 to the world. The next point is, a scientist from South China University point out that the intermediate host, the horseshoe bat, was not available in the wet market and thus does not live in the Wuhan area. The only possible source of the bat was from the WIV or Wuhan Institute of Virology doesn't exist in Wuhan was accused as the reason of COVID-19 outbreak. What made the things more suspicious? After some period of time, the lead author or the scientist from the South China University before retried back the paper and said it was just mere speculation. In addition, two papers posted on the website of the Fudan University and the China University of Geoscience made a similar fate. Their papers were also removed following a new policy mandating government approval for publishing academic papers about COVID-19. I think that's all from me. I believe all the evidence presented has strongly convinced us to accept that COVID-19 may came from a lab leak.
So throughout the course of this debate, I strongly believe that COVID-19 is due to the it's not naturally occurrence pandemic. In fact, it is due to the lab leak. Should not we consider the fact that there were 3 researchers who involved in coronavirus research at the Wuhan lab were treated in the hospital in November 2019, which is just before the virus began to infect humans in the city. This is according to the BBC News. And it will not be the first time a pandemic had been caused by a lab-related accident. For example, in the year 1977, the Russian flu pandemic is widely thought to have been sparked by the accidental release of a virus used in US flu vaccine that had not been fully deactivated. This information is enough to show us that the theory of Wuhan lab is really happening. And if I would like to add, until now, the FBI still cannot do further investigation, and that is why there is no facts that can be presented in any article or journal. There must be something that the Chinese government is trying to do to protect the Wuhan laboratory data. This may refer back to the previous 2 points which have been discussed by my other 2 members. It must be either that it is through the virus leak from the lab, or it is caused by the agenda of China government that has been planning to work on the virus as a biological weapon, as a push factor for a Chinese government's economy. We have to remember that China is a communist country which have a dictatorial government which only cares about money and their development. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we are convinced that COVID-19 is not a natural occurring pandemic. So, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you to all of the speakers from the opposing group for the insights and arguments. So to recap the highlighted points that have been mentioned, where the opposing group argue that COVID-19 is not a naturally emerging virus due to biological weapons by means that the virus is intentionally done, and as well as laboratory leaks. So however, our group has come to solid conclusion that it is not, where I will explain briefly the logical reason behind it with facts stated that due to, firstly, on the biological weapons, as the evidence that we have based on a few researches done by published articles is that the mutation in the virus is completely consistent with natural evolution. Thus, this emphasized that coronavirus would not be a useful weapon, whereas a good bioweapon, in theory, it has to be high lethality but low, not high, communicability. And that spreading such ideas such as intentionally done for the virus would be incredibly irresponsible. Next, with the second argument from the opposing group regarding laboratory leaks in China, Wuhan. Discoveries actually have revealed many evidence of the presence of the virus around the world, before it even emerged in Asia. So there is growing evidence of its true origin as a global organism that was waiting for favorable conditions to emerge instead of originating in China. Not only that, even several leading virology scientists argued that if the disease had been explicitly engineered in a lab, as what have been mentioned, there would be evidence of that in its genomic sequence. But because there is no such evidence, the weight of probability would be very, very strongly indicate that this was a natural event. Another point that I would like to add regarding the New World Order, that the world population has reached 8 billion, and it is true that overpopulation is a serious concern all over the world, but still, on what basis though can we say that COVID-19 is actually employed for it? In what ways does COVID-19 epidemics differ from other pandemics that have occurred before? Therefore, is the H1N1, which also causes the death of millions of people, is a part of plot that was planned also. So the truth is COVID-19, it is not a tool used to control the world population, but instead the COVID-19 pandemics seem to be fueled by human overpopulation between humankind and nature. Thus, COVID-19 is not a man-made, and the exponential growth of human population has led to increased urbanization, which acts as accelerant of epidemics, as was the case with COVID-19 in Wuhan. Thus, to conclude from the perspective of biosafety and biosecurity as well, outbreaks of any infectious disease actually can be classified into 3 types, which is natural, accidental, and deliberate. So with the research and point arguments that presented by our group, there is large body of evidence of what is happening, that COVID-19 is caused by natural virus. It has no characteristic of an accidental or deliberate infection, as COVID-19 is a natural infectious disease that has emerged naturally, not accidentally or deliberately. Which we have to say that the reason why we are opposed to your group is that the fact that COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 is not man-made or genetically modified virus, but rather a naturally occurring emerging pandemic disease. With this, I think that should be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Sharifah. I would like to wrap this session by thanking all of the speakers from both of the pro and contra groups for your participation in today's debate session. Thank you and have a good day.